Imagine a structure so massive, so politically explosive, and so strategically important that it can reshape the future of an entire region. Now imagine that this one project is praised as a symbol of national pride in one country, but condemned as an existential threat in two others. That is the story of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD, Africa's largest hydroelectric dam and one of the most controversial infrastructure projects in the world. At the center of this dispute is not just concrete, steel, and water. It is power, survival, history, and control over the lifeline of the Nile River. And once you understand why this dam matters, you realize this is not just an African story. It is a global story about water, sovereignty, and the politics of the 21st century. What is the dam? The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is built on the Blue Nile in Ethiopia and is designed to generate massive amounts of electricity for a country where millions still lack reliable power. Ethiopia sees the dam as a breakthrough project that can transform its economy, expand energy access, and even turn the country into an electricity exporter for the region. That is why the dam is celebrated in Ethiopia as a national achievement. It represents development, independence, and the right to use a natural resource inside Ethiopia's own territory. For a country with huge development needs, the dam is more than an energy project. It is a statement that Ethiopia intends to rise, industrialize, and shape its own future. But the same project that looks like progress from Addis Ababa looks very different from Cairo and Khartoum. Why Egypt is angry? For Egypt, the Nile is not just important. It is essential. Egypt depends on the river for nearly all of its freshwater supply, and official reporting has described the country as relying on the Nile for about 90 to 97% of its freshwater needs. That means any major change upstream immediately becomes a national security issue. For Egypt, Egypt fears that if Ethiopia controls how fast the reservoir is filled or how much water is released during drought periods, Egypt's water supply could be reduced. Cairo has repeatedly argued that rapid filling could damage agriculture, weaken water availability, and threaten long-term stability. In some reports, Egypt has warned that even a small reduction in Nile water could have serious economic consequences. This is why Egypt describes the dam as an existential threat. From Egypt's point of view, the issue is not whether Ethiopia should build the dam. The issue is whether Ethiopia can manage a river that downstream nations have depended on for generations without a binding agreement that protects their water security. Sudan's middle position. Sudan sits in the most complicated position of all. It is downstream from Ethiopia, but upstream from Egypt, which means it is caught between the concerns of both sides. On one hand, Sudan has reasons to welcome the dam because it could help regulate flooding and improve access to electricity. On the other hand, Sudan also worries about safety, coordination, and the possibility that sudden water releases could affect its own dams and agricultural zones. Reports have noted concerns about the Rosaires Dam downstream and the risks tied to unilateral water releases. So Sudan is not simply anti-dam or pro-dam. It is trying to balance possible benefits with serious risks. This makes Sudan crucial to the dispute. Without Sudan, the conflict would be only between Ethiopia and Egypt. With Sudan involved, the stakes become even more complex because the dam affects not just one downstream country, but two. For Egypt, the history behind the fight. The controversy over the Nile did not begin with GERD. It is rooted in decades of disagreement over who has the right to use the river and under what conditions. Egypt and Sudan have long relied on older agreements that gave them strong claims over Nile waters, while Ethiopia has rejected the idea that it should be bound by colonial-era arrangements it never accepted. That historical tension matters because the Nile is not just a river. It is a shared resource crossing multiple countries with very different needs, populations, and power levels. Ethiopia argues that it has the sovereign right to develop its land and use its water resources. Egypt argues that a downstream state cannot be left vulnerable to decisions made upstream. This is why negotiations have dragged on for years and why diplomatic progress has been so difficult. Each side believes its position is defensive. Each side believes the other is risking its future. And that is exactly what makes this one of the world's most dangerous water disputes. Why this matters now. This controversy is not frozen in the past. It is unfolding now. Ethiopia has officially launched the dam, and tensions with Egypt and Sudan remain unresolved. According to recent reporting, disputes have continued over water security, downstream flooding, and the lack of a binding operational deal. Recent claims and counterclaims have even escalated the debate further. Egypt has accused Ethiopia of reckless dam management, while Ethiopia has pushed back, saying floods and water changes cannot simply be blamed on the dam. That kind of blame game shows how fragile the situation remains. When a single structure can trigger accusations of flooding, sabotage, or unilateral action, the political temperature rises very quickly. And that is what makes GERD so important for viewers to understand. It is not just a regional dispute about engineering. It is a preview of the future where climate stress, population growth, and contested resources collide at the bigger global lesson. The GERD dispute is really about a problem the world will face more often. Who controls water when rivers cross borders? As climate change makes droughts and water shortages more severe, rivers are becoming strategic assets, not just natural landmarks. When you see a headline about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, do not think of it as just another infrastructure story. Think of it as a battle over development, history, identity, and control of the world's most famous river.